Hey, Stewart's Chapel, this is Don Pierson and Don Counts, and this is Thursday, January the 6th devotion. And I bet some of you are thinking, been watching this for a while, and you've been thinking, man, he wears those same clothes for a week or more. Well, let me make a confession. Don Counts and I will sometimes film 3 devotions, sometimes 6 or 7, and sometimes as many as 14 at a time. So, yes, I have the same shirt on as I did yesterday. And I will have it on for the next 5 or 6 devotions. All right, let's get on to Scripture. So yesterday, and by the way, just a few moments ago, yesterday I was ready, man. I was running with this, and then Don gave me that sign that said time out. And so here we are. And we're looking at a little rest, a little laziness, a little slugger, which led us to a look at why Christians should work. And I gave you 2 of them yesterday. We work so we can give to those that are in need. We work so that we can give to support the work of God and His missionaries, pastors, and His servants. I want to share with you another one today. We work so we can make the most of every opportunity. Also in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15 through 17, it says this, "See then that you walk circumspectly," wisely, carefully, watching, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is. And so the will of the Lord in this situation is to make the most of every opportunity. Sleeping may be good for vacation. Sleeping late may be good for vacation. It may be good when you are sick, but it is not to be your normal routine. God made us and created us for work, and we are to make the most of every opportunity. A Christian should make the most of every opportunity more so than anyone else. A fourth reason why Christians should work is so that we can provide for our family. Now, I intentionally did not put that one first, because many people already know that, and that's the only reason they think that they should be working or working for their retirement. By the way, that is not one of the reasons given in Scripture. I am not told in Scripture in any place that I am to work in order for my retirement. No, for the fourth reason is so we can provide for our family. 1 Timothy 5:8. "But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household," that's his family, "he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." Often I have heard this passage quoted out of context, quoted wrongly, and actually used to stop an individual who has experienced a call on his life to into the ministry or as a missionary. I've heard this verse quoted to me early on in my ministry when God called my wife and I. We had 2 babies, and God called us, and my family was quoting this verse to me often. The same thing happened when my son answered call to ministry. People were quoting this verse to him. Now, let me tell you something. I worked more than 3 jobs at a time to get myself through college and seminary. Now, I didn't have any scholarships or anything like that coming. I went through 4 years of college and 3 years of seminary, and I did it in a very short period of time because I devoted myself to my studies, making the most of the opportunity, but I also devoted myself to work, and I provided for my family. My son did the same thing. This passage, by the way, remember, I gave you so we can give to support His work and His servants. The church has a responsibility to provide for those that God calls from within them until they get to a place where they can provide for themselves. That's different than just anyone else. Again, these are individuals who God has called for His work and His servant. But I am to work in order to provide for my family. That is not the number one priority in for me working. The number one priority seems to be so I can give. I work not so I can get. I work in order for me to give. You see, the example that we are given is an example of Christ, who was always more about giving than getting. Don, do the same thing with me on this one. We will get close to the 10-minute sign. Give me the heads up. Another reason, the fifth reason that Christians are to work is because work is God's chosen means for providing for our needs. 2 Thessalonians 3:10, Proverbs 12:14, Proverbs 28:19 make it very, very clear that God has primarily chosen work as the means for meeting our needs. Meeting our needs. You know, a man who works rarely has to worry about what he's going to eat. In fact, the scripture says he who doesn't work should not eat. Working is God's primary means for providing our needs. And those are the basic needs. That's the method God has chosen for my needs to be met, is for me to work. And when I submit and am obedient to Him by committing myself to working, God provides for my needs. That's food, water, shelter, clothing, the basic needs. Now we live in a country, in a society where we talk about needs very differently. Let me tell you something. One of the things that my missionary journey showed me was that man's needs are rarely what we believe they are here. We are a nation, and even the church, a nation, a people of excess. It's hard for us to understand what the need. Let me give you an example. I was talking about this somewhere. Part of our training in going to Belize, well, not to Belize, it was actually training for going anywhere in the world, because this took place here before we ever got there, was the reality that not everybody has two pairs of pants. And not everybody has two pairs of shoes. I guarantee it. You're probably just like me. You got a lot more than two pairs of pants, and a lot more than two pairs of shoes, and a lot more than two pairs of socks, and on and on and on. But I don't know whether you realize that the fact that you have two pieces of clothing, in relationship to the majority of the world, you are wealthy. Not because of the money. The mere fact that you have two shirts, more than two shirts, and more than two pants, the fact that you have two of anything is a sign of excess. Every now and then somebody will enter into this dialogue about excess, and let me tell you something. Let me have this conversation with you. Excess is relative. And so when I hear an American Christian start talking about how they don't live in the excess, and I go to their home, I quickly realize they don't know what they're talking about. Americans live in excess, and they may not have the same thing, because see, what they're doing is they're comparing themselves to those around them, and that is not what you compare yourself. America is extremely blessed. One of the reasons we work is because it is God's chosen means for providing for our needs. Let me say it another way. Work is often God's answer to your prayers for your daily bread. Love you, Stu's Chapel.